I'm recording. Oopsie. Whoa. Let me get everything set up. See me? Hello? What's up? Wow. It's been a little bit. It has been a little bit. I guess to catch you guys up with everything, I completed my longest fast ever, which was 4 days. It was really awesome. It was a juice fast. I was making this really yummy apple lemonade with some grapes. I would do a pound of grapes, 2 pretty big apples, and 1 to 2 lemons. It was amazing. And the reason I broke it is because at the end of the 3rd night, I started to get really intense cravings for sour cream and cheddar ruffles. And that is so far off of the path that I want to be on. But the cravings came up again at the end of the 4th day, and the 4th day was a little much. I went floating down the river, but there was a slew of problems that came on, and for me, food is it's a stress relief at times. It's a place that I can confide in to not face my emotions and just, hang around some sensual pleasure for a little bit and forget my problems until the sensual pleasure turns into pain, as wrong eating always produces pain, constipation, and I have to face my emotions because all they did was slow down in terms of being processed. Anyway, after that fast, I slowly started to dive back into white potato chips, and particularly the sour cream and cheddar ruffles. And I saw that I really didn't have a way to combat these cravings. When I get a craving, I have the mentality of just gotta work it out, just gotta see it through. Because there comes a point where if you are practicing the Mucusless diet healing system, if you are practicing the methods, the methodology behind the transition diet, and you start to strategically approach your eating so you are always cleaning up your body and always cleaning up your mind, you can work through some pretty crazy foods in a decent period of time. I don't think I've really I think the longest one that I've really attacked, it took a while, was 6-ish months, somewhere around there, and that was chips and hummus. Hummus really isn't that appealing to me anymore. But with the sour cream and cheddar ruffles, it took roughly a month. But the first 2 weeks were me realizing that I didn't have a way to fight it, and so I then started to experiment with very well toasted whole wheat bread. In particular, I use the sprouted grain Ezekiel bread, which is amazing. It uses no flour, and it tastes really good when you get it toasty, when you get it real nice. And I hadn't touched toast in months. I used to dabble around with it a while ago. When me and my girlfriend were not dating but hanging out a lot, I would make her dinner. And so my dinner is a salad, and I started to get some cravings, but I didn't want to go spend a lot of money on sweet potato chips, so instead I would make toast. But the thing with toast is it doesn't really do much for me. So I started to make some dressings, as I have this idea of wanting to open a food truck that feeds food based on the principles of the transition diet of the Mucusless diet healing system, so I can introduce people into a way of eating that the food is metabolized completely and eliminated completely without leaving behind any waste that turns into this slimy substance, this gluey, viscous, smelly substance, which, by the way, I don't mean metabolized completely. There's a lot of spinach, kale, romaine lettuce. You don't metabolize that all the way. There's a lot of fiber, undigestible fiber. So that's what you see. That's why you can eat kale and you can see it come out, because it didn't get completely metabolized. But back to my point, things like kale, things like romaine, things like spinach don't leave behind any slime. They don't leave behind any waste that turns into this sticky, slimy mucus, which I have seen strands like that long come out, like that wide. Just insane. It's insane. And I'm not talking about just like once. I've been documenting since like March the stuff that comes out of me. Just, it's kind of like a reminder, a reinforcement in times where I'm feeling low, or in times where I'm getting off the wagon a little bit too much, where I'm like, this is 23 years worth of wrong eating. Well, I've been doing good since like November of last year, of 2021. It's currently August 2nd, 2022. So 22 years of wrong eating. And so I want to give people food that they can like eat and genuinely feel good after. There will be no wrongdoing. The only thing is I didn't use spices. I don't use salt. Salt is cheating. Salt is like, if I'm on salt, I'm struggling. I'm working out something. But if I want to create this food cart, I can't just feed people like tomatoes, like on toast. Like, that's not gonna work. That might be good. I need to create some stuff to where I can meet them in the middle. So that's what I've been doing over the past like week, really. I made some herbal spice blends, and I was doing that like every day, and I was getting really off the rails. And by every day, I mean probably like 3-4 days. In particular, I made this vegan ranch blend, and it's really good. It's really good. And if you get the right amount of salt on a piece of toast, wow. I think the first day that I got it right, I had like 5 pieces, and the next day I did 5 pieces. And then I think I had 1.5 the day after that. And sorry, even the day before I got it correct, I had like 3 slices. It was just so good. It was so good. I call it my high five sauce because I gave it to my girlfriend and she high-fived me. She's like, this is it. And then I've also been playing with this sauce that I'm putting on, or you can call it a dressing. It's a little bit thicker than a dressing, on salad. And I didn't get it right as quickly as I did with this high five sauce. And so I kept having to reapproach it, and I was playing around with the amount of pepper and the amount of salt, and it was just so much on my system that today I woke up and I could feel the lymph stuck in my head. And if you're unaware of what the lymph is, you have like 2 major fluids in the body. You have the blood, which is like the kitchen, and you have the lymph, which is the waste system. And so I like to think of the body as crystallized blood. The blood, like blood vessels, they're kind of like, they project out and they keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Like as the blood gets pumped from the heart, there's one really big blood vessel, gets pumped out, and from there it keeps branching out to smaller and smaller and smaller ones until you get to these ones called capillaries. They're like, I want to say like a cell thick when it comes to the skin around it, and from there the blood can enter the tissues where nutrients, which will then be the building blocks, get dropped off, and so on and so forth. Well, whatever's in the blood gets dropped off there. So you can have things such as mucus, which that is such a tangent that I'm not going to go down. I will be explaining it one of these days, but the reason that wrong eating is bad, and the reason that I don't like using salt or spices, is because it gets deposited in my tissues, and then later on, like as my juices enter my bloodstream and start to dissolve the waste inside my tissues, that waste then goes back into the blood, into circulation, where then it is run through the kidneys multiple times as it circulates throughout the whole blood, throughout the whole circulatory system, until it's eventually peed out, or you excrete it through your poop. But when it gets dissolved back into the bloodstream, especially if it's salty mucus, you get this thirst that is just killer, and it's so unnatural. You'll just be doing nothing and you'll just be thirsty, and you're like, why am I thirsty? Why? I'm not in this boat, but like, it makes sense why in the past, I'm not in this boat anymore. It makes sense in the past why I would just be chugging water. I'd be throwing back, like water bottles, like nothing. I had a reusable one that I filled so much and downed it so much. I was always thirsty and never understood it. It's because the foods that you're eating are incredibly dehydrating. And if they have a bunch of salt in them, that salt doesn't just get excreted right away. It gets stored in you. And so if you have a diet heavy in salt, or you go eat out a lot, which they put salt in everything when it comes to eating out, you're gonna have many days of being thirsty, unnaturally so, even if you get off salt. So that was a little tangent when I went to go explain how the blood works. But then you have the lymph. The lymph is the waste system. So naturally, some waste gets put into the lymphatic system. Actually, like a lot of it, like almost all of it, gets put into the lymphatic system. And so the crazy thing is nothing actually pumps the lymphatic system. I have studied it and how it moves, but I didn't do a very good job at the time because the guy explaining it would just data dump on me, so I could only digest so much at a time. But you can get it moving. And it should be moving to begin with. It should be. But a lot of people have stagnant lymph. And so this lymph, this waste, contains my black pepper, contains my onion powder, contains my garlic, contains my salt. It contains the waste of sour cream and cheddar ruffled chips. It contains all of that. And wherever it chooses to stay stagnant, which more often than not, whenever I eat salt, it tends to be my head, which is really annoying. I get this horrible taste in my mouth, and I get like terrible irritations in that area of my body. And so this morning I woke up and I had, I could feel the lymph in my head. I could feel this extra fluid that wasn't moving in my head, and it was thick and it was causing this pressure. It was like a mild headache, and it was so salty. My mouth had this dry thing, and I had to drink so much fruit juice to dissolve all of that and get it all moved out this morning. And I was just thinking about how that has been the norm for me. Like, I've just been tending to my body and all of its ups and downs through the diet, which has been honestly great. It's been honestly amazing. And I'm so grateful that I have the knowledge that I have, because every day I get better. And I mean that fully, every day I get one step closer to being perfectly clean, completely liberated physiologically. But where was the spirituality? Where was God, That has been empty. And so I was telling my girlfriend earlier how I came to this realization that my actions tend to reflect the type of information that I've been digesting the most. When I was younger, around the ages of 13 to 16, that's when I was listening to music the most. And it's because I was also playing guitar the most in my life. So I was creating a lot of music and listening to a lot of music. The times where I was astral projecting the most and practicing astral projecting the most was also the time that I was looking at information pertaining to astral projection. And you get the gist. Same thing with the dieting, the eating, the time that I'm playing around with food the most and caring about what I eat the most. It has to be the time where I'm studying about health the most. And so I figured like I just need to switch up what I'm consuming. Because the whole point of this mucusless diet healing system is to learn the system, learn the techniques, the principles of the system, and regiment yourself to where that regiment cleans up your body enough to where you can actually trust your intuition again, because you have your intuition and your intellect. Your intuition, for honestly like 99.9% of us, is so far gone through the addiction to these mucus forming foods, to these pus forming foods, to these salt ridden foods, that more often than not our intuition is just addiction speaking to us. Yes, sometimes when it comes to health, our intuition gets it right, but intellectually, you know that having Chinese takeout 3 times a week isn't the right thing to do. If intuitively you're feeling like getting some pad thai, I know not Chinese, that's Thai food, but if you get like pad thai cravings 4 times a week, 5 times a week, ending your night, intuitively you think that's going to make you happy. Intellectually, you know that one, it's not smart because you're spending $20 a meal to get it delivered to you. But 2, like, grapes, vine-ripened grapes, or $20 noodle meal made by a minimum wage worker who doesn't want to be there. A gift from nature, noodles. So that's where your intellect has to come in, and so it's this balance in between the two. But all of that to say is you regiment yourself to the point where you start getting so clean that you can truly trust your intuition again, and your intuition can very much tell you when it is an addiction that is coming up, and you know that if intuitively you know that if you follow that addiction, it's going to be bad, and intuitively you know if you go the other direction, it's going to be good. So you regiment yourself to the point where this healing becomes second nature. You don't have to think about it so much. So you can move on to greater and bigger things. There's a period of time where, and I'm currently going through it right now, where food becomes incredibly important. And yes, you eat to live, but for me, I'm working out of this mode of living to eat as I start understanding, experimenting with stuff, but I'm kind of running through it, a lot of it. Anyway, I just want peace. Like, that's truly, truly what I seek. And that's what I found through many of practitioners that I've studied and heard about as they go through the system, is as you start to come off of these stimulants and just truly settle back into yourself, like, you just want to live. You just want to be like peace. You have a very relaxed demeanor. And I guess I shouldn't speak for everyone. I will speak for myself on this, but as I start coming off of this stuff, I truly just want to be at peace. And whether that is playing my guitar, whether that is being around my girlfriend, being outside, creating a future for myself that I feel like I truly am in control of, and is in correlation and injunction with truth, with, I'm hesitant to say God because I don't like this duality, this separation between me and God. I don't like that because I don't believe it's true. And the more that I progress spiritually, the more I see that as true. I want a life that, but forsake, now you understand the context of how I feel about God, I want a life that's close to God, that's complete union with God, that I am in total union with God, to where, just like the great man once said, me and my Father are one. And so as I come off of these stimulants, these wrong foods, the way that I think, the way that I perceive is so different. And it's, in the past like week or two, it's become very noticeable. Like the changes in what I'm seeing and my view of what I'm seeing is becoming extremely noticeable, to where it's like, oh my God, Like, you see how far we've gone from Eden, from natural living, from being one with everything, from walking barefoot in nature, from, if we're hungry, this other living being, this fruit-bearing tree literally gifts us our food. We don't need to kill to eat blood, flesh, a carcass. We don't need to do that because beings are literally gifting us food if we choose to eat. Clean waters flowing through the rivers. We're a relaxed, loving species. That's our nature. I have yet to see a practitioner, a serious practitioner of this diet, of this system. I don't want to call it a diet. It's not just a menu. It's an intricate system. It's an art form. It's beautiful. I've yet to see a practitioner that doesn't have a loving, understanding, empathetic presence, nature to them. I think everyone has a loving nature, but when you pervert it, you put salt, you put spices, you put carcass, you put alcohol in them, it makes it gross. And so they act accordingly because they're so far from their nature. I think if we all just go back to how we are through the removal of what shouldn't be there, mucus, disease-causing matter, which, by the way, can grow bacilli. Tuberculosis, someone's gonna die when they have tuberculosis because their lungs, you can start seeing the bacteria, the bacillus. So a lot of people think, well, that's what caused the tuberculosis, that's what killed them. The only reason that bacteria could even grow in that person's body to begin with is because they were so mucus ridden that in the areas of extreme encumbrance, in the local areas such as the lungs, that bacteria could actually thrive on top of that mucus, which is just uneliminated, continuously decaying, fermenting remnants of certain foods, such as rice. Did you know if you boil rice, it'll turn into this paste, which bookbinders use as a glue? And if you let it sit out for a long period of time, it'll smell terrible, it'll taste extremely sour if you decide to eat it, and it can grow fungus and mold. Imagine eating rice your whole life. This substance turns into this pasty glue when chewed up and swallowed. You're gonna poop out a lot of it, but you're not gonna poop out all of it. And so what gets left behind turns into that stuff that does that can kill you, because it can sustain life that will kill you. So imagine people that don't have that in them. Imagine people that have clean blood. Imagine people that, I can go on, but I've been down some very interesting thought trains the past few days. It's been really interesting. And that's why I strive to find a way financially to get myself out. It seems like I need money to get myself out of needing money. I mean, I could just pilgrimage or something, I don't know. That's where my mind's at. And so since that's where my mind's at, that's the only things that I'm really allowing myself to see. I need to open myself up more, which, funny enough, this system does the same thing. This system is another way of going back into God. I was told today that, by Ramana Maharishi, that the path of knowledge and the path of devotion are very interconnected, and you should not separate the two. The reason I'm going into the system so intensely is because I do believe it as a way of coming back to God, as I see that through the perversion of my body, through wrong eating, through spices, through stimulants, I truly lose sight of God. Some of my closest moments to to God have been, to my like true nature, have been when I've been fasting. My meditations, I used to hate eating because my meditations would get destroyed. Because I didn't understand food back then. I still thought nutritionally. I remember at times I would have a bowl of grapes and cashew butter, which, not salted cashew butter, raw cashew butter. So you probably think of that and be like, oh, that's a healthy fat, and he's got carbs, that's a great nutritional balance, that's good. But if you eat fat and fruit, the fruit just ferments inside of your stomach, creates a bunch of gas, a bunch of pressure, makes it really hard to meditate and relax. But now with my correct eating, I can always enter deep meditative state because my body's always relaxed. My body's always at peace. And the only time it's ever stressed out is when I have to eliminate. And so with this knowledge, my devotion increases. Since I've almost completely put my devotional practices to the side, I've put them at like 5% of my life recently for the past 6 months. It feels like 95% of my energy has gone to the path of knowledge, but it's so I can then ramp up my devotional practices again with a newfound efficiency, because I don't have to worry about eating anymore. I don't have to think that, all right, like my best meditations are in the morning. Like now I can eat my lunch and still go into a good meditation. I can fast, and I can enter a fast and break my fast safely and still keep some of that spiritual purity as I decide to eat again. There's an extreme correlation between physical purity and mental purity, and mental clarity along with physical clarity. The cleaner your body gets, more mental clarity you will have. It is like law. It is, it's no way going around that one. So, but I'm getting back into my practices. I just bought this book that is an autobiography of a Swami, he who knows himself, a person that knows himself and can only be ordained into the Swami order by someone else who has been ordained by someone else who has been ordained into it, because each person that ordained the other into it saw that they knew themselves, meaning enlightened. It is a human organization, so I'm sure that there are flaws, but I've heard a lot about Swami Rama. I've read small excerpts of this book. It was beautiful, so I'm excited to dive back into it, find some inspiration for just how beautiful life can be when you are interacting with those that are in union with the truth, in union with God. So open to the spiritual world. I am just excited. That's all. I just want food to take a step back. I don't want to eat to live. I don't want to live to eat. I want to just eat to live and go on enjoying this beautiful thing that I call life. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Peace.